racing against Max Verstappen might be the hardest challenge another F1 driver can undertake. Now before we get properly stuck in, I just want to say that I think Max is a phenomenal driver. I know the title alone is going to upset a number of people who are probably already writing out their comments as I speak. This isn't hate, just some criticism. And you can call me Kendrick Lamar, because I can even predict your angle. People who love Senna and Schumacher but hate Verstappen are hypocrites. What if I said you can like certain aspects about a driver and not others? For instance, I can appreciate Senna's incredible speed, the way Schumacher revolutionized the sport and took Ferrari back to the top, Verstappen's ability to dominate like nobody else. But I can simultaneously criticize how they raced wheel to wheel, yield or crash as it's called. There's a clip of Ayrton Senna and Martin Brundle racing, where the Brazilian just threw his car up the inside. Now, in this situation, Brundle could have done two things. Option A, take evading action to avoid the incoming Senna, or option B, risk his life and take his normal line through the corner. To maintain track position, he chose B, and Senna landed on his head. Ironically enough, Verstappen did the exact same thing to Hamilton in Monza 2021. And let's just say, thank God the halo exists. Schumacher in Adelaide 1994 was even worse than yield or crash. This was straight up just deliberate. Michael makes a mistake, giving an opportunity for Damon Hill to pass. And then he just turned straight into his championship rival, taking him out of the race and securing the championship. All of these cases are prime examples of dirty driving that, as a sports fan, I just don't appreciate. Maybe as a Brit, I place too much emphasis on sporting etiquette. But then at the same time, I've seen countless other non-Brits complain about this style of driving. Heck, even most reasonable Verstappen fans can admit that he's going too far. But for some reason, whenever he oversteps the mark, you always get a small, vocal minority who deflect and change the narrative. And for some reason, it always comes back to Silverstone 2021. I swear, it's like clockwork. Even though that race has nothing to do with Max almost sending Lando to the shadow realm, you'll still see it being referenced. But to be fair, they've only got like 2 comebacks to anything. Either that or cry more. Oh yeah, and British bias. That one's a classic, how could I forget? What happened at Turn 7 in Mexico was the culmination of a problem F1 didn't address in 2021. The way Verstappen drives, particularly when he's in a championship fight or under pressure. And the worst part is, I know this man can actually race wheel to wheel very well if he wants to. Name any battle he's had with Charles Leclerc, apart from Austria 2019. Silverstone from the same year when they were fighting for a podium. The early races of 2022, like Bahrain and Jeddah. Charles is one of the only drivers on the grid who knows how to race Max Verstappen, mainly because he grew up racing with him. But when you put this man in situations where there's stakes or the pressure starts increasing, he gets more aggressive. Which makes sense, of course. He wants to win at the end of the day. Some can argue that forcing another driver off track anytime they try to hang it around the outside is unethical. But it's just what he does. Since most F1 fans found it exciting to start with, the stewards were pretty lenient. It's also nice to give the drivers some freedom to hash it out amongst themselves and not over-police things. However, at some point, for certain incidents, they just have to step in and define the limit of what is acceptable. But they didn't, and let it get so far out of hand that it's too late to do anything about it. In those moments where his back is right up against the wall and he feels completely helpless, like how he doesn't have the car to compete in the closing stages of this year, or when he's getting hounded by relentless pressure from Lewis Hamilton, in these specific instances when there's a championship on the line, he will quite literally do anything. Win at all costs, as some people say. Even if that means taking out your opponent, so be it. He's pretty much the modern day Schumacher. Phenomenal talent, but extremely dirty in high pressure situations. None higher than the last 4 races of 2021. And here, I'm going to explain how the FIA's inability to penalise Max appropriately in these situations, in addition to Red Bull's culture of dodging accountability, created the beast that cannot be tamed. While unethical though, these tactics actually benefit him. If he knows he's getting cooked, he'll try his best to either take you out or screw you over as much as possible. Jeddah 2021 is the perfect example. He tried everything, attempting to T-bone Lewis multiple times, brake checking him as well, and for those of you who are still in denial, even Newey himself said it was a brake test. At least he was the only one within that Red Bull team with some sort of a backbone to call out Max. And if that's not enough, telemetry has the last laugh. This guy used 80 to 90% of maximum braking power, and you're really trying to convince me he didn't do it on purpose. Have some shame, bro. That alone should have been a disqualification. And I can already hear the "what about Silverstone" crowd losing their heads. Now, obviously the outcome was unfortunate. Nobody wants to see another driver get hurt. I'll never know what it's like to hit a wall at that speed with that amount of G-force. Chances are, I can imagine it's pretty painful. And I can understand in the context of a championship battle, how it's upset a lot of people. But there was no malicious intent from Lewis's side. Was it overambitious? Yes. Was he mostly at fault? Also yes. But then again, this moment was a long time coming. It was inevitable. Neither of them were willing to back down. Up until that point in the season, Lewis kept letting that stuff slide. You know, Spain for example. If he doesn't get out of the way, he's out of the race. But slowly by slowly, he had to match that energy. Mind you, there were many fans and pundits who were loving what Verstappen was doing. Martin Brundle was jumping up and down, clapping with joy, watching this guy's way of driving. But when Silverstone came around, Lewis put his foot down. I mean, he had to. If the FIA weren't going to do something about it, then he would have to start getting aggressive too. And we all know how the story ends. Also, to the few Max fans who still think Lewis did this deliberately, I just want you to think about the level of precision you need to be able to pull that off, in a way that you take your opponent out with heavy contact while sustaining absolutely no damage on your own car. It's quite literally impossible to orchestrate consciously. Lewis would literally need to bend the space-time fabric of the Earth and be able to somehow manipulate reality to do all of that on purpose. It was by pure luck he was able to continue in that race. Jeddah though, there's no question, Max was actively trying to force a DNF for Hamilton. This was on par with what Schumacher did to Villeneuve in '97 in terms of intent, but they couldn't give him a harsher penalty because of the show. When the FIA president is saying stuff like,
"Motorsport is not anymore about competition only, but it's about entertainment, and that's what we have to bring to the fans, is the entertainment." You
understand why they let Max get away with so much. On that day, Lewis was superhuman with his reaction times and avoided everything Verstappen threw his way. Bro was really moving like prime Mayweather with them dodges. And that race actually docked a few years off my life expectancy because the level of stress was through the roof. But looking back, I can confidently say this is one of Lewis's most incredible victories ever. How he managed to navigate Max's terrorism with such composure and still win with the fastest lap and a broken wing, I will never understand. The same tactics were used in Brazil. No intention of making any corner. My man wanted to go on a trip to Argentina and take Lewis with him along the way. And the commentary team just lost all brain cells, because what kind of question is this?
Did Verstappen drive Hamilton off the track?
Is 1 + 1 2 ass question. Jonathan Wheatley started trying to gaslight the stewards, being like, that's all about letting them race. But they didn't even need to be convinced, because they already had their own agenda. No investigation necessary. It didn't matter in the end though, because Hamilton was on another planet. But it set a dangerous precedent. That day, Max realized he could just do whatever he pleased and not get penalized. On top of that, his team will never hold him accountable for anything. I thought after Jeddah, they would at least admit to him being in the wrong. But nah, the same old deflection tactics. He's just racing hard, but fair. Brother, we must be watching different sports, because what's fair about any of this? And again, the commentators. Max doesn't like the yield, does he? Why don't we just call it out for what it is instead of beating around the same old bush for years on end? The FIA once again let him off easy. And after that, he probably felt invincible. It's this very problem that nobody seemed to care about in 2021 just because they wanted to see Lewis be dethroned. Well, you got that. But you've now also got a driver who thinks he's the exception to everything. Rules for thee, but not for me. And at this point, he's too far gone. They brought the hammer down pretty hard with that 20-second penalty, but I don't think it was nearly harsh enough. Turn 4, to be fair, wasn't a 10-second penalty by any means. It was maximum 5, but I don't really care much to delve too far into that. But this one was minimum a drive-through or a stop-go penalty, because it's not just unsportsmanlike, it's legit dangerous. And the thing is, he doesn't even need to stoop this low. I think he's such a brilliant driver that it's actually below him to resort to foul play. But who cares what I think? He doesn't even care himself. All he wants to do is turn up, win, go home, and get on Minecraft or something. So, how does one actually race this guy? I mean, clearly he's not going to change. He's set in his ways. One thing I'd personally suggest, in my absolute expert and qualified opinion, is never try to go around the outside of this dude. Lando was always going to get hung out to dry. I expected nothing less. And just as we're touching on that, I briefly wanted to cover the whole ahead at the apex rule. This came directly as a result of what happened in 2021. And this rule has literally made Will Tour racing so much worse, and I don't understand how it's taken them this long to realize. By that logic, you can literally just drive straight into another car while touching the apex before the other guy and claim you were ahead of the apex. This rule, man, it is a sickness. I'm sure by now you get the point. The only question now is, what do the FIA do about it going forward? Because I guarantee you, if Max gets another opportunity to try and take Lando out, he will happily go for it with no shame or care in the world. To me, it's simple. They have to keep penalizing him in a way that would deter him from ever doing it again. I've seen a few people mention points deduction. I don't really know if there's a rule for that, but I think it would definitely make him think twice before making any reckless moves. The entire purpose of what he did at turn 7 in Mexico was to reduce the points swing Norris would gain by winning. And it worked. He knew he had no chance of winning because the car had poor race pace. So docking points off would give Max less of an incentive to pull off such maneuvers again. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think would be appropriate down in the comment section. If it wasn't clear by now, Max is the type of competitor who has a win at all costs approach. It's highly divisive. Some love it, some hate it. I can see it from both sides. On one hand, it's great because it makes for some fiery on-track battles and heated off-track exchanges. One thing I'll give to Verstappen is that he's brought a lot of entertainment value in that sense. Sport inherently is all about taking risks in the highest pressure situations. However, there is a limit, and Max seems to know no bound with that limit. At some point, it's no longer about taking risks, but genuinely endangering others. Too often has Max Verstappen crossed that line, and it's about time they start penalizing him properly for it. Let me know what you guys think. Was this a long time coming since 2021? And what should the FIA do going forward? Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this one, be sure to drop a like, share it around with friends, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to get my latest videos in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.